You know that moment when you're talking to your kids? They go away. They stop listening. It might be like 3 seconds in. It might be 30 seconds in. You might be lucky if you get like to a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. What happens in those moments, and how can we keep the connection alive? I'm going to talk about 4 things that we can do to help our children stay engaged with us, but more importantly, for us to stay engaged with our kids when we're starting to feel the relationship a little bit unravel. The first thing is to notice, am I starting to plan out what I want to say next instead of listening? Or am I noticing my child starting to get in their head and think a little bit more instead of being able to stay with the conversation? It's noticing those non-verbal cues of maybe a little bit of boredom, a little bit of looking off, a little bit of thinking, maybe a little bit of fidgety happening. Maybe in that moment we need a stretch break. Maybe we need to take a time out for a minute and come back to the conversation. Or we can continue the conversation on a walk or outside throwing a ball back and forth. The second thing I like to notice is, am I becoming reactive? If I'm becoming reactive, then I know something is going on inside of me. I used to tell people when my son went off to college that the problem that I was having with my son wasn't my son, it was what's going on in me. And so when I had that much distance and clarity of mind, I could come back to my mindful state, take care of myself before I became too reactive and do any repair on reactivity I'd already done. And then I could go back to step 1 and be more present to be able to listen. The third thing I like to put into place is to listen more, talk less. So I know you've heard me say that before. Listen more and talk less. It's such an easy trick, but we always feel, especially with our kids, there's this anxiousness that comes up that we have to do something, fix something, take care of something, teach something, control something, judge something. We don't have to do any of that. They are unique individual people who, if we just guide, they will tell us where they need to go. And the fourth thing was something that a dear, dear friend of mine said to me one time. Trish, you need to remember that your kids don't have the same attachment styles that you have. She went on to remind me that my kids were securely attached to me, and the anxiety that I was feeling was my own anxious attachment coming up. And I want to remind you, parents, that we have our own unique attachment styles with our kids, but we only come from our own environment. So we bring this with us, and that's what we get to work on. So me remembering that I might have this anxious attachment feeling with one of my kids doesn't mean that it's the truth in the relationship. It's what I'm feeling because of my own anxious attachment from before. this little doodle on a postcard. It just started out as a reminder that your children don't have the same attachment style as you. And I think this is a reminder that I need to put in my journal, or maybe I need to put it on my desk sometimes. It depends on what's going on in me of where I need to put it. Because our attachment styles can go in there and start to mess up our relationships. And so just remembering that we have this basis of security with our kids, and we've offered them that. We always need to keep a parameter on ourselves on what's going on inside, and what does this little part of me need that might be feeling anxiously attached in this moment. The feeling is real. The reality, the situation might not support it. And so it's offering this little part facts to help them to feel more soothed, comforted, and connected to my whole self so that I can be in relationship with other people. So I'd love to hear where you struggle with this in your own relationships, with your child, with your spouse, with your employer. It all comes around to attachment and how we relate to the world. But you can let me know in the comments. I'd really like to know. If you want to go a little bit deeper in this, I have this other video that I invite you to watch. It talks about how our unconscious material might be presenting in your life. Until next time, I'm sending so much love. I want to remind you to doodle to connect to your whole self.